Welcome to League of Legends Tactics, brought to you by Alienware and Gamebreaker TV. To see more videos, head on over to AlienwareArena.com. On this episode, we'll be exploring the Sheriff of Piltover, Caitlyn. Caitlyn is a ranged AD champion whose strength lies in her long-range attacks and built-in escape tools. Her passive, Headshot, means that after a number of attacks which vary by level, Caitlyn will fire a headshot that deals 150 weapon damage to a champion and 250 damage to a minion or monster. In addition to this passive, her shots from the brush will count as 2 attacks. This ability is what makes Caitlyn strong in the lane. Free damage after so many shots, plus her massive range, makes her an incredible bully. Also, since you will likely be bot lane with her, firing from the brush isn't difficult. When you get a headshot up, make sure to use it on an enemy champion for some big damage. Her Q ability, Piltover Peacemaker, is an ability that causes Caitlyn to channel briefly and then fires a long-range shot that penetrates enemies, dealing damage to all that are in the line. This is effective for harassing, as it will pierce minions and can deal damage even if the enemy is standing behind their creep wave. A note to keep in mind, however, is that it will deal reduced damage for each enemy it passes through, down to 40%. This ability scales well and should be maxed first. Her W ability is the Yordle Snap Trap. This ability places a trap baited with a tasty cupcake on the ground. Any enemy champion who steps in it will be snared and revealed for a brief period of time. Note that only enemy champions can activate the trap, so you can place it inside of enemy minion waves without the fear of it missing its intended target. Unlike Teemo's Mushroom, this won't give you any vision while the trap is down, but it can still be useful to place these in brush and have advance warning when someone's coming. Her E ability, 90 Caliber Net, is an ability that doubles as Caitlyn's escape and built-in slow. When Caitlyn uses this ability, she jumps backwards and slows whoever hits her net. This is important to remember, especially for people who use smart casting. So I will say it again, this ability knocks you in the opposite direction in which you fire it. Keeping this in mind, when you try to chase down an enemy champion, this ability can be especially useful. Additionally, this ability can be used to jump over some walls in the game and makes it very useful for escaping. Her ultimate R ability, Ace in the Hole, will have Caitlyn lock onto a target and channel briefly. After the channel is complete, she will then fire a high damage shot. Some notes about this ability are that the range is immense. At max rank, it is slightly over half the range of Twisted Fate's teleport. The last 2 points are that once the ult has started to be channeled, the range is effectively infinite and will hit regardless of how far your target moves away. However, the most important thing to keep in mind with this attack is that it can be blocked by enemy champions. That means if you use it to attack a champion that's almost dead and someone from their team gets in front of the projectile, they will get hit and not your original target. Now, as all champions, Caitlyn has some weaknesses to balance out her impressive ability to poke. Primarily, as the game goes on, you will start to notice that she doesn't deal as much damage as other ranged ADs. This is because her 2 major damage-dealing abilities require a small channel time. This means that when you use Piltover Peacemaker, you are not going to be able to auto-attack. This can be a problem given that typically the ranged AD's major source of damage is auto-attacking, and it means that your abilities can actually cause reduced damage in sustained fights. Along with this, her 90 Caliber Net will have limited usefulness in team fights. Its best uses will be repositioning, as you will most likely want to save it to chase down fleeing champions, or to run if you end up in a bad position yourself. Also, her trap has a short activation timer, which means it's not a reliable CC to be used in teamfights. Because of this, you will want to try and set up walls of traps and use her impressive poke to set up fights where opponents can't reach her. What this ultimately means for you as a Caitlyn player is that you will be most at home in fights with a lot of poke and try to avoid intense all-ins. Now remember that Caitlyn's strength comes quickly in the laning phase. Putting a point into Yordle's Snap Trap will allow you to limit the movement of the other team. This also makes it easier to hit with Piltover Peacemaker, and her exceptionally long range means that you can poke while remaining relatively safe. For good damage, try to keep Headshot up as much as possible. Remember to fire from the brush to last hit, as it will activate your passive and stack Headshot faster. Also, traps can be used a bit more defensively by placing them in the brush in the river. This will make it difficult for the enemy champion to set up ganks in the event that you don't have wards. This means that typically you will want to play her aggressively in the laning phase and try to force their AD carry back to pick up an early lead. As the game goes on, work with your jungler to secure dragon kills when possible and begin gearing up for team fights. As mentioned before, you are strongest during the poking phase prior to a team fight, so you should use this to your advantage. When both teams are trying to set up and position themselves, make sure to use Piltover Peacemaker as much as you can to wear them down. Also, it's a good idea to save your ult for after the team fight is over. This isn't to take kills, but the channel time on the ability is fairly long, and during that time, you can't be auto-attacking. For Caitlyn, the late game plays much like the mid game, except for the fact that teams will be dealing more damage. So again, you will want to do as much damage as you can during the poking phase of the fight and maintain good positioning until both teams have committed. Now as for items, Caitlyn will use similar items to other ranged ADs, and the order in which you get them will depend on how the match is going. For instance, she can make good use of both Infinity Edge and Bloodthirster, but which one you get first depends on how you are doing and who your support is. If you are playing with a support that doesn't have a heal, getting Bloodthirster before Infinity Edge can help keep you in the lane longer. However, if you're getting ganked a lot or often focused in team fights, getting an Infinity Edge means that you don't have to worry about building damage stacks. Next up, getting a Zeal and then building it into a Phantom Dancer can give you run speed to keep up with enemy champions that are trying to run away. Additionally, a Phantom Dancer will also increase your attack speed and crit chance, making your passive deal higher damage more often. If the other team is stacking a lot of armor, consider getting a Last Whisper, as it will help you mitigate through their defenses. Last up, in the late game, when you are going to be focused by enemy champions, having a Guardian's Angel will make you harder to kill and be a lifesaver in teamfights. That does it for this episode, but tune in again for another League of Legends Tactics, brought to you by Alienware and Gamebreaker TV.